The following program is brought to you by Pizza Productions.
I'm here to show the world. I'm here to show the world. Come on, bring it on. What I say, better watch what I do. Better you know what I'm here to give you. If you ever doubted me, you don't have a clue. I'm here to show the world. I'm here to show the world.
Hello and welcome to the Totally Necessary Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Porter. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are here to cover the week that was professional wrestling. As you can tell, it is only I, Kevin Porter, that is here to report the news from the week that was professional wrestling. As we stated, big news that we will get to regarding the future of this podcast. We'll go ahead and address that at the very end of this podcast here. So let's go ahead and just jump right into the week that was, ladies and gentlemen. Moving forward, I like to do this a little bit differently. Not necessarily differently, but definitely want to include more talk when it comes to other wrestling besides WWE. I think this podcast in its previous incarnation was really WWE heavy. I think that a lot of that was just based on the fact that other people that were associated with this podcast, that's all they watched was WWE RAW and Smackdown. They didn't really jump too far into the other outlets of professional wrestling that are out there. So at this point here, we're definitely going to still cover Raw. We're going to still cover Smackdown. I know we just introduced NXT a couple weeks ago in terms of our coverage. So definitely we're going to be talking about all three of those shows. But yeah, I definitely want to talk about Ring of Honor this week. I've been watching Ring of Honor pretty consistently here recently. So I definitely would like to at least talk about this week's episode, which is kind of weird on that end. I mean, that one, it's a syndicated program, so a lot of the times with syndicated programs, there's different dates that the shows are airing. I know here in my local area, we air our show on a Saturday night, which is kind of funny because considering we're going towards pay-per-view this coming Friday for Ring of Honor, their TV show airs on a Saturday when the pay-per-view is like the day before, which this week's TV was building up to that specific pay-per-view, which we'll get to be able to run that down here by the end of this show. But yeah, let's go ahead and just jump right on into the news here this week, ladies and gentlemen. So we had WWE Monday Night Raw and Smackdown emanating from Denver, Colorado. So they were in one city. They were in the Mile High City for both Raw and SmackDown. I've been to Colorado. It was cool. I went to their airport. That was pretty awesome. Drank a beer there when I was there. It's pretty cool, man. I mean, hopefully some of the employees there were able to partake within the legal marijuana industry down there in Colorado. But Monday night kicked off with the Shield kicking off Monday Night Raw here. Basically, we had Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins talking about their championship accolades and stuff, and like they're kind of more or less just putting it out there that, hey man, we're the champions, man. We are, in Roman Reigns speak, we are the big dogs of the yard, okay? So this prompted Raw General Manager Baron Corbin, which I guess Raw did kick off with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon coming out of the limo and meeting Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin, I mean, I don't want to shit all over the guy or anything, but I know a lot of people aren't really high in regards to Baron Corbin and his performances of what he's providing to the WWE product on a weekly basis. I'm kind of like from the perspective of, I don't really mind seeing somebody grow weekly. I mean, I understand, and again, this is such an overused term, but the term, Rome wasn't built in a day. So I mean, Baron Corbin, I'd like to think that week to week he's going to be getting better. Is he the best general manager of all time? By far, no, that's not the case or anything. But nonetheless, we saw Stephanie basically tell Baron that, hey man, if you don't get your shit together, Kurt Angle's coming back. I mean, I think that's ultimately what we're moving towards, is a Kurt Angle Baron Corbin match, which in 2018 I don't know how many people are actually clamoring for a Baron Corbin versus Kurt Angle match, but I mean, it's apparently in the works. At least that's what one is led to believe based on what we're seeing on television there. Ultimately though, with the beatdown that Baron got, he kind of basically got told, man, you gotta bring that Shield. You gotta put those guys in check. You know, if they're running rampant, they're the inmates are running the asylum or whatnot. You definitely got to put them in check here. So basically, we saw Baron Corbin come out and book a 6-man tag match with his tag team partners to be announced. So it's kind of like the cliffhanger of the evening that night was who's going to be teaming up with Baron Corbin there, right? Ultimately, we saw Braun Strowman and Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre. Apparently, the Dogs of War, which was a pretty catchy name, I thought. I thought that was actually decent. They're not apparently going by that group name anymore, but they ultimately chimed in, basically planting the seeds of a dissension within the group of the Shield. I mean, that's one thing right off the bat I gotta, congratulate, not necessarily congratulate, but at least, acknowledge. I enjoyed this past Monday was the continuous storyline of, well, is Dean Ambrose going to join Braun Strowman, Dolph Ziggler, and Drew McIntyre, or is, he going to stay with the Shield and stay with his brothers, It was fun. It was a fun little teaser throughout the night. I mean, we saw the many backstage segments with Dean, Dolph, Seth. I mean, they even tried planting some dissension between McIntyre and Ziggler and Strowman. So I enjoyed that type of storytelling. I thought that was fun. It kind of gave you something to look forward to, especially when you're dealing with a 3-hour TV show. I mean, it can get boring some at certain points. So having that tease in there, that's always, a fun little element for, again, a 3-hour show there. So that was your opening segment. We moved into a Finn Balor versus Jinder Mahal match, which again, it kind of feels like, okay, so is Finn Balor basically his current status. I mean, it looks like they're pushing the mixed match challenge more or less. I mean, him and Bayley are going to be battling Jinder Mahal and Alicia Fox as part of the mixed match challenge. But hey, so we got the Balor defeating Mahal. It's disappointing. I mean, I think Jinder's kind of where he needs to be in the sense of he definitely overachieved by winning that WWE Championship last year. And again, say what you say about his reign. Finn Balor, I think, is, you just want to see more, man. You want to see the guy win the world championship. You want to see him go above and beyond. At least I do. I mean, I was a fan. I mean, to be honest, I didn't really know who Finn Balor was coming out of New Japan. I mean, you'd heard rumblings of this thing called the Bullet Club at the time, but, and this is a time where I wasn't necessarily paying that much close attention to the independent wrestling circuit. I mean, it's really blossomed within the last 5 years or so. And not saying New Japan is an independent, on the independent wrestling scene. I would definitely say it's a competitor up there with WWE in a global market. But nonetheless, they definitely, I don't think they were doing the business here stateside back when Finn Balor was running the Bullet Club. But nonetheless, it was planting the seeds where we see New Japan obviously progressing to where they are now. With that being said, it is what it is at this point. I mean, this match got a good solid C rating from our friends over at the Bleacher Report. It is what it is, man. After the match, we saw a frustrated Mahal threatened physically to harm Singh, but obviously calmed himself down as part of his new inner peace gimmick here. Yeah, it is what it is. Again, Monday Night Raw, it's a 3-hour fucking show. You're gonna have to fill it up with shit. So this is just this is that, man. To me, it's just filler. If you watch the Hulu version, this wasn't even included on the Hulu version. Tell you the truth, if you've been watching the Hulu version, you probably haven't seen Finn Balor in over a month. I mean, in a sense, kind of when we harken back to previous conversations on this podcast about how it's so oversaturated in regards to the talent and whatnot. And, with Monday Night Raw being as long as it is, they are able to put people on TV weekly, and, that's not always a good thing. More isn't always better. I've learned that over the years. I mean, you want so much more in your younger years. You're just like, oh man, I want to. And I'm sure if you're a little kid, man, seeing Finn Balor and Jinder Mahal may be the greatest thing ever. But to a 32-year-old watching this, it's seeing it week in and week out and seeing the same matches. It's boring, and I don't want to see it anymore. So yeah, hopefully at some point we'll see Finn Balor work his way to that main event spot, but it doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon. So one of the most interesting spots of the night was the Bella Twins and Natalya teaming up to take on the Riot Squad. A little bit of a preview of what we're going to be seeing in Australia here. I guess at this point, not in about a week's time frame, we'll be setting up for that big super showdown coming out of Australia. But we saw the Riot Squad taking on the Bella Twins and Natalya, which ultimately we saw Brie Bella with a series of kicks to the head of, I believe, Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan ultimately getting the concussion due to the Brie Bella kick to the face. We saw the series of yes kicks coming from Brie Bella, and ultimately got a little too snug there on Liv Morgan's face and just dropped her. A lot of talk coming out of this is, the simple fact that Liv Morgan was able to get back into the match and hit that fun little superplex spot that they were doing with all three of the women, or all six of the women, I should say, getting suplexed at the same time. But with that, I mean, yeah, sure, it does call into question whomever was at ringside, but I mean, you're kind of in the heat of the moment, so I mean, I get it. Like, ultimately, you're looking back on that like, oh shit, well, she should have never have been let back into the ring once she got out. That's scary. It's a scary fucking moment to be in that, and none of us sitting in our being that Monday quarterback, Monday armchair quarterback. What the fuck they say that? Jeez, none of us have been in that moment. Unless you're a professional wrestler, and unless you've been in that moment where something happens that maybe isn't necessarily the safest. You know what I mean? Like, we just don't know. We don't know how that fucking how that works. So, I mean, they did the best that they could, I guess, but, yeah, ultimately she should have never been back in the ring there. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately the Riot Squad picks up the win. Obviously, they're needing to build some momentum going into next week. So there you go. The Riot Squad wins. We'll see that match, that 6 women tag match featuring Ronda Rousey in Australia. So that'll be interesting. In another match that wasn't featured on the Hulu version, which again, this series, Chad Gable versus Connor of the Ascension, hasn't been featured on the Hulu version. Again, just like the Finn Balor moments, like within over a month. So, I mean, if you're just watching the Hulu version and you're not actually reading results or anything like that, you definitely have no idea that this storyline is even going on at this point here. Ultimately, Connor getting the win over Gable. Good to see, considering, Gable had been basically getting a bunch of wins over the Ascension here the last couple weeks here. So, yeah, it looks like, Gable is continuing his storyline here with Bobby Roode. And, again, it's just one of those things, like, I don't really care that much about it. I don't think any of you listeners really care that much about this. So moving on, Raw Tag Team Championship match, The Revival taking on Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre. This is definitely one of the better parts of Monday Night Raw this week. Definitely, dude, I would love to see more of The Revival taking on Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre in a Tag Team Championship, feud. But I mean, ultimately, that's not what is in the cards here. I mean, it was a great TV match, but again, does it take us anywhere? Does it advance storyline? Really? No, it doesn't really do anything. So, albeit a great match, ultimately, it's just building up Dolph and McIntyre, which again, the Revival, I think, should be a little bit higher up in regards to the respect that they're getting on the main level. I mean, it's just fuck, man. These guys, you see these guys in NXT, and they, you're just like, oh man, the potential, like what they could be doing with this, and here we are, and they're jobbing out and stuff. Which I mean, like, look at it, AOP. which ultimately we're getting to the main event. So, at least they were featured, probably the most prominent that they have been since their call-up. But, I mean, would you necessarily say that the call-up of AOP has been a success so far? No, definitely not. The Ascension? Definitely not. The Revival? Definitely not. But then again, those two have gotten some unfortunate injuries in the last year, so that did kind of hold them back there, but nonetheless. So in a match, in our next match, we saw Bobby Lashley taking on Elias. Ultimately, this is setting up your Bobby Lashley, John Cena, Elias, Kevin Owens segment that is going to be happening next week at the Australian Super Showdown. This match was set up after a brief edition of the Kevin Owens show. So ultimately we're seeing Lio Rush, which again, I've talked very highly about this man. I've seen him on the independent scene, shook the man's hand actually, because he was going to his merch tent and we were going outside to smoke weed. So, I walked by him. I'm like, fucking great match. I'd never seen the guy before. So I was like, fucking A, dude. That was my first like Defy wrestling event. Seeing him and Shaden Strickland just tear the fucking house down. Nothing topped that the rest of the night. Match of the night that night. But so it's great to see Lio Rush getting a featured spot here on Monday Night Raw. I'm really enjoying seeing him team up with Bobby Lashley. The match itself here, ultimately it got a B grade from the Bleacher Report here, but I didn't really think the match was that great. I mean, unfortunately, Elias, I guess his shtick is basically, it is what it is. You're not really going to see him go above and beyond where he's at in regards to his spot. I mean, he's got a spot on the show, and I mean, ultimately, that's all you want. I mean, if you can have a spot on the show, I mean, you should always ascend to do higher, but I mean, you're doing good for yourself by having that much at least. He's got a shtick, and he's performing to it. Kevin Owens, again, I want to see them build him another, just kind of similar to Finn Balor. You want to see him do good. You want to see him, at least I personally want to see him succeed. I'm a big fan of him and Sami Zayn, and ultimately I wanted to see them with the tag titles, but again, that just never was in the plans apparently. But I like seeing Kevin Owens, that aggressive side. I mean, it is what it is. It seems I'm hoping that he's making the best of his situation, which it seems like he is. In regards to his performances, I mean, I think he delivers every single time, even if he is just given, some short-term speaking spots with Lio Rush. But that's cool, man. It's cool. It's building Lio Rush up. Ultimately, we saw the disqualification, so Lashley defeated Elias, which the disqualification I thought was pretty stupid. I thought that was a pretty stupid spot. So yeah, is what it is. We will see ultimately John Cena return to television in Australia to team up with Bobby Lashley. So not too sure what we're going to see, this coming Monday. I mean, are we going to see John Cena on Raw to promote this match? I mean, I don't really, is it necessary? Probably not. But at this point here, hey, all right, guys, here we go. We're going into Saturday's Super Showdown, and we're going to see hopefully a fun tag match. I mean, hopefully a fun tag match, man. We saw Nia Jax taking on Alicia Fox. Nia Jax obviously is back from injury. Her and Ember Moon apparently are picking up on that BFF factor at this point here, which I don't know. That's one thing it's cringeworthy. I find with the this. I don't know. You see the promos for Total Divas. They're all like, we support each other. It's just like, kind of go back to your kayfabe days of like when you're a kid. Like, oh, aren't you guys supposed to hate each other? Like, where's the fun? Where's the fun if there's no dissent? Whatever. Ultimately, we saw Jax defeat Fox here. Again, is what it is. We're putting Jax over here. She's fresh back from return from being gone for at least a month or two. So it is what it is, man. Obviously great to see Ember Moon on TV. I'm a fan of Ember Moon. Alicia Fox, albeit maybe very limited in the ring. I've always enjoyed her character. It's surprising to hear that she's, to remember that she's been in the WWE for like 10 years, man. Like, how does Alicia Fox have a 10-year run within the WWE, man? That's a bit crazy there. So ultimately, in our main event of the night, we saw The Shield taking on Baron Corbin and his eventually revealed tag team partners of Authors of Pain. Good to see Authors of Pain featured on a a main event of Monday Night Raw, and ultimately, it seems like they're trying to start building. They're trying to build them up at this point with the squash matches that we've been seeing here within the last several weeks. So it's cool. It's cool to see new people being involved within the main event here. So again, most people are pretty down on Corbin in terms of his work rate, along also with his mic skills. So I mean, does that really kind of tell you right there people don't like him? But at the same time, I don't know. Like I kind of like Baron Corbin. I can't believe I'm kind of fucking saying that, but like I gotta defend it a little bit. It's like, man, this guy may turn out to be decent. I mean, did you think the fucking Miz was gonna be, Hall of Fame bound when you first saw him back in 2006? Fuck no, dude. I think there's something about Baron Corbin I like, and it's good to see him. Again, I like seeing him in this general manager role, and I'm willing to go week to week and see where this goes. But we saw Razor, and dude, I have such a horrible name, Akeem. So one of those two had a pretty big stare off with Roman Reigns. That was pretty cool, I thought. I thought that was pretty fun. Kind of maybe teasing like we're gonna see more of AOP in the Shield down the road. Again, how many people are clamoring for that? I don't know, but I like it. I like the big guys. I do enjoy seeing like the big Haas matches. As one I heard on the commentary they were talking about. And we'll get to the match here later, but it was Big E and Sheamus, and they were like, "Oh, it's a big Haas match." Like, fuck you guys, but it's a good way to describe it, I guess. So like, why would I say fuck you then? But whatever, dude. It was fun. It was fun. It was this 6-man tag. Ultimately, it wasn't the greatest match. I mean, or anything by that nature. But it was still fun. It was a fun segment. The Shield defeated AOP and Baron Corbin here. I mean, all in all, it was a fun Monday Night Raw, I suppose. I mean, was it really the best? No. I mean, ultimately we saw Dean Ambrose. The storyline with Dean Ambrose paid off at the end of the night with him eventually, fisting with his stablemates, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. I know that we've called this on the podcast in the past. I mean, ultimately, I think we're going towards a Dean Ambrose turn. I think Dean Ambrose as a heel is going to work, and it's going to be fucking awesome. Obviously, tonight's not that night. I mean, they're not going to be so blatant in regards to when it happens. Obviously, I really hope that it's a legitimately is a surprise. It can be fun. It can be fun, and we're not going to see it coming. We're not going to see it coming, guys. So that's how we ended Monday Night Raw this past week. Again, it was a fun show. I don't know. I had fun watching it. I've heard reports, people not necessarily being too high on it. Again, it's a 3-hour fucking show. Until they drop that fucking third hour, I don't think a lot of people are really going to find a lot of enjoyment. Again, that definitely the match of the show was the Revival versus McIntyre and Ziggler. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on over to Tuesday night. We had the first ever Truth TV, which was R-Truth apparently taking over the Miz's TV segment based on his main event win here several weeks back over the Miz. So Truth TV's very first guest was Daniel Bryan. So again, this kicks off your Tuesday night SmackDown. Again, it seems like this is kind of like, besides the AJ Styles Samoa Joe program, this is like your top two programs at the moment. Here is Daniel Bryan and the Miz and versus the Miz. Dude, it was fun seeing R-Truth again. I know people on this podcast have definitely been behind an R-Truth push, and dude, I'm definitely for it too, man. I love R-Truth. I've always liked R-Truth. I've always thought he was funny. He was a solid act. He was always a good wrestler. His matches were fun. Dude, hell yeah. So, seeing him and Carmella, I mean, like, it was fun. They and not, again, like, the crowd, I gotta say, kind of made this segment, I gotta say. Props to fucking the crowd, both Monday night and Tuesday night. Denver, Colorado, man, you guys are a solid wrestling crowd, dude. You made the shows fun, for sure. So, ultimately, we saw The Miz come out, trade some war words between R-Truth and Daniel Bryan. Ultimately, we saw The Miz basically run backstage, complain to Paige, and was like, hey, cancel this show right now, Paige. General Manager Paige. Paige refused and basically told him, hey, you got to go fight R-Truth for your TV show back. And so ultimately we saw The Miz defeat the Truth. I feel like I'm saying and ultimately, again, we're in a work in progress right here. So I promise you, if I have to do any more of these reviews by myself in the future, definitely I will work on those two words. So here we are again. The Miz defeats Truth. We saw Daniel Bryan on commentary. I loved him going back and forth with Corey Graves. This is just setting up our number one contender match that's going to be happening at the Super Showdown next week with The Miz and Daniel Bryan. It's nice to see. It's nice to see Truth in a featured role. I guess that's ultimately what I'm going to take from that segment. The Miz, all three of those guys are money, and Carmella, you're fucking money too. That was fun. She adds a lot to it. And then moving on to our big Hoss match, we saw big Hoss match. Jeez. Big E versus Sheamus here. This is a fun match. I enjoyed the match. I didn't necessarily like the banter though, back and forth here. I thought the banter was pretty stupid. Between the New Day and Sheamus and Cesaro. On Instagram, I saw Cesaro's picture. He did the selfie with Sheamus and the New Day in the background looking all beat down and stuff. So that's cool. I mean, again, we're building up to Super Showdown here, so we're going to get the big tag team match here with the tag team titles on the line with New Day versus the Bar. Which we've seen this feud before. Again, I think we're just in transition mode at this point here. I don't think the Bar is going to win the tag team titles. I don't think they necessarily need it at this point. With that being said, I think this is just a one-off for the Australian pay-per-view. I think, we're going to see a fresh feud, hopefully, coming shortly. Hopefully, maybe returning Sanity. I mean, I'd love to see Sanity get a fucking push. I mean, again, here we are talking about NXT and whatnot and bringing these people up, and it's just fucking disappointing. It's disappointing to see them fucking succeed on the NXT level and then having to fucking come up to ultimately where just things are a lot different. And, we just see things happen differently on the main roster. So, we have our success stories. You have your Eliases and whatnot. But for every Elias, you have your Tyler Breeze. So there you go. So Sheamus defeated Big E. Again, we're building it up. Cesaro and Sheamus have both gotten wins, singles match wins over, members of the New Day, Kofi Kingston and Big E. So here we are next week. It should be a good match. I'm looking forward to the match. I like the work rate of all 5 competitors, so nothing wrong there. Quite possibly what could have been the segment of the night. We saw Aiden English explaining himself to Rusev for why he ultimately turned on him. So he basically is blaming Lana for the reason of the breakup, for the reason why he chose to turn his back on Rusev. This was great. This, again, kudos going to WWE this week here for the storytelling. I thought between this story and obviously what we saw on Monday with the Dean Ambrose dissension, it's fucking great. So we saw the ultimate tease though, basically Rusev saying, hey, or I'm sorry, Aiden English, claiming something happened in Milwaukee. And, ladies and gentlemen, apparently we will find out next week. It was revealed that, Aiden English has video proof. So we will be watching, with, close eyes on next week's Tuesday Night Smackdown in regards to what the revelation will be on what happened in Milwaukee. What happened in Milwaukee, ladies and gentlemen? We can all assume what happened, but I kind of going into last week was like, fuck, they're gonna break them up, and like WWE has a shit track record when it comes to any sort of breakups or anything like that. They just don't. It's never fucking good. Look what happened with Big Cass and fucking Enzo Amore when those two broke up. That was garbage. I have a little bit more hope for this after this week. Again, I'm going to be paying attention next Tuesday to find out what happened in Milwaukee. So moving on, we saw Asuka and Naomi take on Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. This was ultimately set up by a pretty fun little segment, I guess. I don't know. I've heard some people kind of shit on it. But it was ultimately because, Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose attempted to touch Naomi's hair. Ultimately, Asuka took offense to this and defended her friend's hair. And here we are. That's how we ended up with this match. Again, people will complain, I suppose, about, an Asuka and Naomi pairing. But it feels like they're eventually moving towards a tag team titles for the women. So I think, pairing the odd woman up with one another is definitely, we see it on the men's side. Look at Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. So that's what we're seeing with Naomi and Asuka. And again, they're on TV, they're getting a paycheck. So that's great. I'm a fan of Naomi and Asuka, and I really like Asuka's interaction with Naomi so far. Honestly, I've been enjoying it personally. Like, I really haven't had like that much of a problem in regard to the backstage segments the last couple weeks here. So ultimately, we did see Asuka and Naomi defeat Rose and Deville here. I think that we do have a tag team match with the Iconics teaming up to face off Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, which thank God for the interruption that we had with the Iconics getting cut off there. I'm not really a fan of their segments. Kind of when they first debuted here, I believe was a couple months ago or whatever. Their segments seemed to be fun. It was kind of fresh, but it's just, I don't know. The delivery's just not there for me, man. So the Iconics, I'm not very big fans of, but seeing again, Asuka and Naomi, I'm fans of both of them. So seeing them put together, like, hell yeah, let's bring it on, dude. I'm all for that. So we saw Shinsuke Nakamura take on returning Ty Dillinger. Again, it's not like he was hurt or anything, but he's on TV this week, ladies and gentlemen. This was a fun segment. Okay, so I don't really know what's going on with Nakamura. Ultimately, he's not necessarily in a feud of any kind. He doesn't have a match coming up here at the Super Showdown in Australia. Ultimately, we saw Randy Orton appear out of nowhere and assault Dillinger. Ultimately. Excuse me with that cough there. We saw Randy Orton just decimate Ty Dillinger, and even mocked his 10 finger his little 10 thing that he does with his hands. So I like Ty Dillinger, man. I think he's kind of one of those ultimate underdog type characters. Hopefully, obviously we're going to see him and Randy Orton in the ring. I think that's cool. It's good for Ty. I think it's going to be a TV match, obviously. It's just we're going to see a little bit of a continuation just to get Randy Orton through whatever is next. I think ultimately we're going to see Jeff Hardy return, so I think we may see another Randy Orton-Jeff Hardy match. Don't know exactly when that's going to happen or where. But again, after that Hell in a Cell match, man, I'm high right now on Randy Orton's heel turn. I'm still enjoying it every week. I'm enjoying his character. Definitely, again, enjoyed the assault down on Dillinger. I thought it was pretty fun here. With the ending of how Ty Dillinger was on the floor and Nakamura, he's the ultimate opportunist apparently, and did the Kinshasa, and just Dillinger's head smashing off that LED board. It was pretty gross. So it was a fun segment. I definitely enjoyed this spot on SmackDown here. So earlier in the show, we did see Becky Lynch ultimately beating down Charlotte. Charlotte was in there for a photo shoot, and then Becky Lynch comes in with the title belt on like a fucking boss and just completely annihilates Charlotte. So, dude, I'm loving this Becky Lynch storyline. I don't even care if she's good or bad or whatever, dude. I'm just enjoying the fucking attitude that she has. So we ultimately saw a backstage segment where Lana is trying to explain to Rusev that, hey, nothing happened in Milwaukee, and Rusev's like, whoa, when was the last time we were in Milwaukee? It's like, dude, you guys were just in Milwaukee a couple of months ago, dude. Like, maybe it could have been a couple weeks ago, I don't know, but I know they went through and they were in Milwaukee not too long ago. I don't know if it was a SmackDown show or a Raw show, but I forget, but I know they were. So we saw ultimately, though, Becky Lynch coming in, just throwing some fucking sass down on Lana, just like, fuck you, bitch. And I loved it. And we saw the setup of Lana versus Becky Lynch for later on this evening. Lynch took care of Lana. it needed to be that. Obviously, Lana is not necessarily your best wrestler in ring. So it was solid, though. I saw, you just watching the match for what it is. It was just a solid beatdown, and that's all it needed to be. Lynch is going to take on Charlotte. Hopefully, Lynch carries that title for a very long time. I don't want to see Charlotte anywhere near that. I really hope Charlotte taps out in Australia. So, because, yeah. So in our main event of SmackDown this week, we saw Samoa Joe go to AJ Styles' home instead of coming in to Denver to sign the contract. This was great. This was top notch. Again, this along again also with your Rusev, Aiden English, and also what we saw on Raw. Great storytelling here, guys. I mean, I think a lot of people suspected this type of segment was going to happen. Samoa Joe, his delivery, his 2018 MVP so far. If I was to give out MVP out to anybody today, being September the 28th, completely going to Samoa Joe. AJ Styles is run within 2018 and run with the title belt, it's not to say that it's been disappointing or anything like that, but it's just, these finishes, it's not, we're not getting I don't know. Just the Shinsuke Nakamura feud kind of just left a bad taste in my mouth in a sense. It's just you really wanted to see Shinsuke take the title, but for whatever reason, they don't feel he's ready for it yet. I think ultimately Shinsuke will get a run with that belt. But for that reason, AJ Styles has continued his reign going into almost going into October. I mean, they're gonna have the match. It's gonna be in October because we are in the final days of September at this point. So this segment though, it was great. Samoa Joe is just fucking on fire. I didn't necessarily like AJ Styles kind of standing in the ring don't do it, bro, don't do it. That was kind of cheesy, but you think you would have ran and gotten your cell phone, you would have tried getting on the phone or something, or you would have maybe gone to the announce table, give me your phone, Byron, give me your phone, Tom, Corey, I need to call my wife. That probably would have been a little bit more okay, that I would suspect that would have been my first reaction. I mean, if I was in the ring, and that was happening to me. But ultimately, I mean, again, it is what it is. I liked how they went off the air, just going off black. Again, we're leading into SmackDown next week. There's two things I'm excited for. I'm excited for the reveal of what happened in Milwaukee and, whatever we're going to get between AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. And hopefully, find out what happened with Samoa Joe arriving at AJ Styles' home there. But all in all, man, I thought SmackDown was a fun show. SmackDown definitely went by pretty quick when I watched it. Monday Night Raw, again, cut that fucking third hour out. I'm going to keep saying that every fucking week, motherfuckers. But again, the storytelling was good this week on the two main shows there. Kind of diverting our attention. I kind of want to, jump into some New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor news here before we get to the coverage of the Ring of Honor TV from this week. Being ultimately, I guess, it being released on September 25th is when they were. Again, it's a syndicated fucking show, so whatever. We have a women's, going into Vegas this, actually tonight, I guess tonight being September the 28th here, we're seeing the Tennille Dashwood taking on, her name, it's kind of fun how we have so many Japanese women that are predominantly featured within American Women's Championship title runs here. And really, Sakai's, I'm really bad. I apologize for the fucking butchering of Sumi Sakai's being the first ever Women of Honor champion in Ring of Honor. So she's going to be defending against Tennille Dashwood, which all of you, I would think, would know that she is the wrestler formerly known as Emma. So ultimately, I think this is going to be hopefully a shining moment here. I think ultimately Sumi has had an awesome it's awesome that she established herself as the first Ring of Honor Women of Honor champion. But I think it's time. I think Tennille Dashwood is ultimately going to be taking this tonight in Vegas for the Ring of Honor pay-per-view there. So ladies and gentlemen, I think that's definitely hopefully could be definitely one of the biggest matches there. So I don't know, guys. So I don't know. I guess we were going to talk about New Japan, but I'm going through the information here. They were talking about Jericho apparently is expected back in Japan here this coming November. Basically, Randall Ortman of Cage Side Seats, he's reported that, Jericho is expected to return to New Japan for the November Power Struggle event. Exactly who is his opponent going to be? Basically, what was set up between the last confrontation between Tetsuya Naito and Chris Jericho, where ultimately we saw Chris Jericho defeat Naito for the Intercontinental Championship at Dominion earlier this year. We saw Evil try to interfere and defend his Los. And again, dude, I'm really bad with these names. It's like, it's kind of one of those things. It's like where I don't really talk to a lot of people about New Japan Pro Wrestling, so it's a lot of like times like seeing Tetsuya Naito, like, this is the first time I'm actually like enunciating, because you only hear it and then you like say it in your head or whatever. But his stablemate, because they're in the Los fucking jeez, I am horrible at this shit today, guys. I apologize. Los Inagalabalas? I don't know. You guys fucking know. If you watch New Japan Pro Wrestling, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. But let's see if we can get a better enunciation. You guys are like, Kevin Porter, like, does it really matter? Does it really matter how you pronounce that? Yeah, Los Ingobernables is how you would enunciate the attempt to enunciate the crew that Naito and Evil are in for New Japan Pro Wrestling there. So yeah, dude, totally. Chris Jericho is apparently going to be taking on Evil within the Power Struggle event in November there. So that should be a fun match there. Ultimately, I think Y2J is kind of like, we talk about an MVP of 2018, man. Dude, what the fuck is Chris Jericho been doing with his 2018, man? He's wrestled for both WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if fucking Chris Jericho turns up in Impact, in Mexico, in South America. I mean, he showed up at the All In pay-per-view, which was pretty fucking historic in the sense of like Chris Jericho showing up in a different event, wrestling, and not to say the All In is a different wrestling federation or anything like that, but to show up on another wrestling show within the United States, it shows, the tides are changing right now. I mean, Jericho's always been on record saying he'll never wrestle in America for another company outside of WWE. Well, obviously that's not the fucking case anymore. So, Chris Jericho as your Intercontinental Champion in New Japan is fucking awesome, and I'm looking forward to him making his return here this coming November. Jumping into Ring of Honor TV from this past week, we kicked off the show with the team of Chucky T and Trent Beretta, collectively known as the Best Friends, taking on the Boys, which the Boys are kind of like they're teamed up with Dalton Castle, which Dalton Castle has been out with injury for some time, which I haven't quite heard exactly what. I haven't really looked too much into it, but apparently he'd been dealing with quite the amount of injuries. So it's sad, that's may have been why Dalton Castle ended up having to, drop the Ring of Honor World Championship to Jay Lethal here in the last couple months, but hopefully we'll see Dalton Castle here soon. This was a pretty fun match, man. Chucky T and Chucky T. Is it Chucky T? I think it's Chucky T. Sure, we're going to go with that. So Trent Beretta and the Best Friends, I mean, this is ultimately was setting up a 10-man tag that's taking place tonight in Las Vegas for the pay-per-view of the Bullet Club teaming up to take on Chaos, which Chaos is a New Japan stable featuring Okada, along also with Best Friends. Apparently, at least they're teaming up. I don't know if they're in Chaos or not. That's a good question. Again, this is like where we're learning new things, man. We're putting ourselves out there. We're learning new things about different wrestling federations, so we don't know everything quite off the bat here. We're on a journey here, guys. Ultimately, Best Friends defeated the Boys in 727 via pinfall. The ending segment, man, it was a pretty fun little match. Just a TV match. Again, we're not going over 10 minutes here or anything like that. But it served its purpose. Best Friends obviously needed the win going into the pay-per-view tonight. The Boys aren't necessarily doing anything else outside of jobbing. And it served its purpose there. So definitely a fun little match here. We saw a fun segment between Kenny King and Adam Page, Hangman Adam Page, which, not necessarily being very well versed in Adam Page. outside of like seeing him here since he's joined the Bullet Club within the last year or so. I guess a year and a half. I'm a fan. I mean, this guy's really young, apparently. I mean, he's in his early to mid 20s. So I think this guy's the sky's the limit for the roof. The sky's the limit for Hangman Adam Page. I enjoy his work in the ring. Kenny King, I've been watching him since his days in Impact Wrestling. So I'm a fan of both men. This was a pretty fun back and forth match here. Definitely King defeated Adam Page in 12 minutes via pinfall. It was pretty cool because apparently Kenny King a couple weeks back on Ring of Honor TV defeated the villain Marty Scurll. And this in that match, King had defeated Scurll via his feet on the ropes. They teased King getting the win over Adam Page the same way, but the ref ultimately caught it. King ultimately got the tights and the quick roll up, and we saw him pull out the victory here. So this is going to continue. They're building Kenny King up for possibly a future title match against the Ring of Honor World Champion. So yeah, dude, totally fun. He's continuing his heelish ways. I mean, Bullet Club are fucking solid baby faces. So yeah, we saw Kenny King, his build ultimately, Kenny King, again, in his heelish ways, his build continues here within Ring of Honor, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, let's go ahead and just keep on moving forward here. So we saw what happened here within the Top Prospects tournament several weeks back. Jeff Cobb, debuting Jeff Cobb, I should say, debuted on Ring of Honor television, ultimately stopping the Top Prospects match, not necessarily saying a word, and just letting his presence be known to the Ring of Honor audience that Jeff Cobb is here. So this week we saw the continuation of the Top Prospects tournament completely derailed as a returning Jeff Cobb completely annihilated both of the top prospects that were in the tournament match. Ultimately, Jeff Cobb is stating that he is the top prospect in Ring of Honor. Having seen Jeff Cobb in person, I have to say the guy is a beast. I definitely don't know a lot about Jeff Cobb, but from what I've seen and heard, the dude, again, you know, we talk about Adam Page, the sky's the limit. Again, this is another person that I feel that the sky's the limit for this guy's talents. He's a bigger dude. You know, definitely you know, going back to our Haas comments, he's a big fucking Haas, man. I definitely am looking forward to seeing him on Ring of Honor television. Also advance his career in New Japan, as he's recently made that jump to New Japan Professional Pro Wrestling as well. In our main event of the night, we saw Jay Lethal and Jonathan Gresham take on Bully Ray and Silas Young. Bully Ray, man, we all know who Bully Ray is, dude. It's damn fun to see him still on your TV screen in 2018, especially within Ring of Honor. Jonathan Gresham, like, we saw him take on Jay Lethal for the World Championship here within the last couple weeks. That was a fun match in that it was like a 30-minute Iron Man match. Normally Iron Man matches aren't necessarily the best matches, but Jonathan Gresham, dude, like, I like the guy. I immediately went out and I followed him as soon as I saw him in that match, and then, you know, see him in the last couple weeks here, because last week we had the setup to the main event match that we saw here. I'm a fan of Jonathan Gresham. Jay Lethal is fucking awesome again. He's your Ring of Honor World Champion. Ultimately, we saw Bully Ray and Silas defeat Jay Lethal and Jonathan Gresham, with Jonathan Gresham taking the pinfall here for his team. It was a fun match, dude. I mean, Bully Ray is really fucking good for what he does in Ring of Honor, and whenever he does his Bully Ray gimmick or anything like that, I think that's always been money. It's too bad he didn't get do that within WWE, and they just had to do the strict Dudley Boys gimmick or whatever. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. I fucking hate doing that. But yeah, nonetheless, this was a fun main event. I mean, obviously you need to build up Bully Ray and Silas as Silas Young, which Silas Young, seeing him, he reminds me of a Jake Roberts, honestly. I mean, Silas Young just reminds maybe it's the mustache, I don't know, dude, but even when he talks, he kind of just reminds me of a young Jake Roberts. So, again, building up the tag team match that Bully Ray and Silas Young are having at Death Before Dishonor this evening. It's ultimately, that's definitely why they would be going over, for the main event here on TV. Speaking of Death Before Dishonor this week, again, Ring of Honor TV, it's a 1 hour show every week. You're not necessarily seeing the best. I mean, it's not necessarily your best wrestling show or anything like that, but it's always a fun hour-long TV show, and I enjoy it. And again, we're going to be talking about it every week, so get used to it, guys. So the matches that are being built for Before Dishonor, we are seeing the Bullet Club, which is Cody Rhodes, Marty Scurll, Adam Page, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, taking on Chaos, which is Okada, Chucky T, Trent Beretta, Rocky Romero, and Tomohiro Ishii, all teaming up. This, I don't know if this is going to be your main event or not, but it's a 10-man tag match. I mean, I expect this to be a very entertaining match with all the talent that's in the ring here. I kind of expect, I'm going to probably just call it, I think Chaos may go over, but ultimately, I mean, Bullet Club, dude, they're fucking baby faces. Chaos are baby faces too, though, so yeah, I think, we're all going to be winners with this match. So I'm going to ultimately call for a Chaos win on this one here. We are also going to see a Ring of Honor World Tag Team title match on tonight, whereas the Briscoes, Mark and Jay, take on the Addiction, which is Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian. SoCal Uncensored with Scorpio Sky. I'm a big fan of these guys. The Briscoes, I think they've been around for a while at this point. I don't want to necessarily say I'm the biggest fan of the Briscoes, but ultimately they have their spot on Ring of Honor, and again, they're your be all end all when it comes to tag team champions, tag teams within the Ring of Honor system there. Ultimately, again, I hope we have new champions this coming Sunday, or as of tonight here. I'm used to saying pay-per-views on Sunday, but this one is on a Friday. I hope the Addiction pull it off, guys. I really hope after tonight we have new Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. We're going to be also seeing Punishment Martinez take on Chris Sabin for the Ring of Honor World Television Championship, which this was built up ultimately via promos this week on Ring of Honor television. But Chris Sabin, he's still alive. He's still kicking, guys. He's still wrestling. Alex Shelley, unfortunately, appears to have retired here within the last several months here. So your Motor City Machine Guns are no more. Chris Sabin has always been a favorite of mine, even back to his Impact days, obviously, being with TNA and being a former Impact World Champion himself. Taking on Punishment Martinez, another guy here that, it's just like, it's kind of got the wait and see approach. He's kind of got that Baron Corbin vibe going to him. He's kind of a big, tall, lanky guy. I ultimately, from what I've seen him in the ring, I'm enjoying. I mean, I'm not saying he's the best wrestler or anything, but I've enjoyed his matches. His promos are so-so. So again, it's just one of those guys that kind of take a wait and see approach here. In singles action, we are going to see Kenny King taking on Jushin Liger. I think Kenny King ultimately will take the win within this match. And backtracking just a bit, hopefully I see Chris Sabin take on win the World Television Championship, because I like Chris Sabin. So Punishment Martinez just took the title here just recently, but hopefully Chris Sabin takes it. But ultimately, I think, honestly, if I go with my gut, Punishment Martinez will probably retain. Again, Kenny King taking on Jushin Thunder Liger, which, Jushin Thunder Liger still wrestling at 2018. That's fucking crazy. I think Kenny King will pick up the win here. I mean, he's obviously gotten his wins over the villain, Marty Scurll, and also Hangman Page here recently. So I think Kenny King, again, they're building him up for bigger things. We will see him go over Liger tonight. Again, in a previously mentioned match for those singles, for the Women of Honor Women's Championship, we have Sumai Soke taking on Tenille Dashwood. I think, again, Tenille Dashwood, I think it's her time tonight. I think ultimately she will win the Women of Honor's Championship and will prove to WWE that by letting her go, that was a giant mistake, because I think she is very talented and is proving that with her run within Ring of Honor so far. For a singles match for the actually, I should cover this before, because I don't know what's going to be the main event here, because it could be that 10-man tag or it could be the World Championship match. I'm not too sure. But we are going to see Flip Gordon team up with Colt Cabana to take on Bully Ray and Silas Young. This is kind of going back to Flip Gordon, just, his feud with Bully Ray, and Colt Cabana, kind of stepping up for Flip Gordon here. This is going to be just a fun match here. I like both Flip and Colt. I'm obviously a listener of Colt Cabana's podcast for quite some time at this point here. So I'm fans of both them, and along also with Bully Ray and Silas Young. So I think this is just going to be a fun match. It's going to be a tables match. I think ultimately Flip Gordon and Colt Cabana will get the win. So we'll see and see what happens there. And then with hopefully maybe the main event of the night there is the Ring of Honor World Championship match, which is your world champion Jay Lethal taking on Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is an awesome junior heavyweight who currently wrestles within New Japan. He does wrestle from time to time within Ring of Honor. Ultimately, he accepted Jay Lethal's open challenge in regards to, I think it was pretty much an open challenge, more or less. It was established here a couple weeks ago on a Ring of Honor television for the World Championship title opportunity at Death Before Dishonor. I don't think Ospreay's gonna take the title. I think this definitely could be match of the night, honestly. I think Jay is definitely going to be Jay Lethal will be retaining. But again, this definitely, in my opinion, probably will and should steal the show. But yeah, we have 7 matches for tonight. This is going to be one great pay-per-view, guys. If you have the opportunity to watch this, I totally advise you to. I really wish I would have a recap show on this one here. But I don't have the ability to watch it, at least at the moment here. So maybe we'll either talk about it next week, the results. If not, maybe we'll put out a special edition of the Totally Necessary Wrestling podcast, going over the results of Death Before Dishonor 16. Actually, this is the 16th version of it, so that's pretty cool, man. So everybody check that out tonight, and let's go ahead and finish this off on definitely my favorite WWE show here, guys. And we're gonna kind of just run through this here. We had NXT this week. Definitely, we kicked it off with William Regal addressing the hunt for Aleister Black's assailant. So it's good to see that they're still continuing this hunt for Aleister Black's attacker. Ultimately, we saw the Undisputed Era arrive. Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong all getting some mic time here. Basically, we kind of set up the next couple weeks of NXT TV. We're going to be seeing Adam Cole taking on Ricochet and Pete Dunne in a triple threat match. It appears to be for Ricochet's North American Championship, which, dude, I'm looking forward to that. I believe that's actually next week, so we should be definitely getting a badass, I think in 2 weeks. Yeah, they called it in 2 weeks. So that's definitely going to be something to look forward to. We're going to be seeing the War Raiders taking on Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong for the NXT Tag Team Championships in 3 weeks. That'll be taking place in 3 weeks, and that's going to be fucking fun as shit, guys. I'm really looking forward to both of those matches, and ultimately that's kind of what we said this opening segment. It's kind of weird because normally NXT will open up with a match, so it's kind of fun seeing it switched up a little bit here in regards to them coming in and having a talking segment to open up the show. Is a little different compared to what we're used to in regards to that, because it is nice to open a wrestling show with a wrestling match. I mean, such an outdated way to open a wrestling show in 2018. In our first match of the night on NXT TV this week, we saw Lars Sullivan taking on Victor Orchant. Ultimately, EC3 came out and attacked Lars Sullivan, causing the disqualification here. Sullivan obviously picking up the win, as Origin was disqualified due to the interference. EC3, I don't understand why he's a good guy. I mean, they bill him as like being part of the 1%. It's like, don't people hate rich people now? I thought that was the whole idea, but I guess not in the case when it comes to EC3. So we're going to be seeing that match, I believe, next week on NXT TV. We're going to see EC3 and Lars Sullivan, which you would think that would be building up to a takeover match. But obviously, with them only having 4 takeovers a year, 4 or 5 takeovers, and the next takeover not happening until November. So we definitely got to pass time. So this may just be a feud that's featured directly on NXT television every week. So I'm a fan of Lars Sullivan, and EC3 seems to be building. So he's building momentum within the WWE. Again, he left WWE, he went to Impact, he built a name up in Impact, and now he's back, and now he's ready to take over, guys. So I really wouldn't be surprised in the next 5 years if we saw EC3 main eventing a WrestleMania. So maybe by WrestleMania 40, that's what we'll see, EC3 main event for the World Championship there. Hopefully not the Universal Championship. Hopefully they get rid of the Heinz Ketchup world title there, guys. So we saw the Street Profits taking on the Mighty. The Mighty are the former TM61. I want to say that was their name. It was like TN61 or some shit like that. They're a couple guys that from Australia. They're like a cruiserweight tag team, being repackaged as now known as the Mighty. They're a heel tag team. They've been in a feud with the Street Profits. Ultimately, stealing their, such a dirty heel tactic, stealing something from the babyface wrestlers, in the form of their jewelry. Which was fun. So I like the Street Profits. This is my first time really seeing either one of these teams in a while. And, I really think the Street Profits definitely have potential, guys. I'm not really good with the names of either one of the teams here. But one of the dudes from the Street Profits, holy shit, guys. that Montez Ford. Okay, Montez Ford, when he did that flip over the ropes, and just, man, the velocity of that dude's height, and damn, dude, I am looking forward to things to come from Montez Ford, guys. Dude, yeah. So ultimately, the Mighty defeated the Street Profits here. We're continuing this feud here. This isn't the last time we're going to see this match, so hopefully this builds up to a very fun blow-off match here in the future. But again, I enjoyed that match this week. Kari Sane. We are obviously way too far into this podcast now, guys, for me to just be fucking up names. Took on Vanessa Bourne. Kari Sane. Took on Vanessa Bourne. This is just get Sane out there to, show her that she is the NXT Women's Champion. Ultimately, Sane defeated Bourne in pretty quick fashion. What happened afterwards, though, we saw a returning Shayna Baszler come out, cut a promo on Kari Sane, and ultimately challenge her for the rematch, which we now know will take place at WWE Evolution, the very first women's pay-per-view here at the end of October. So here we go, guys, getting the big stage here for the NXT Women's Championship. So hopefully they go out there and put on a fucking good match. Shayna Baszler, yeah, she's definitely in NXT for a reason. Her promo skills, was a little, you could tell it was pretty fucking scripted. Listening to Kari Sane again, English obviously isn't her first language, so definitely not shitting on that or anything. It's definitely, I wouldn't say this is my top, feud that I'm enjoying in NXT currently at this point, but again, both are progressing, and again, this is why we have developmental leagues. This is why we have them on this stage, is to make sure they're building themselves up into a better performer, and eventually seeing them on the main roster. Definitely. So there you go, guys. So that's gonna happen at WWE Evolution. In the main event of NXT TV this week, we saw Otis Dozovic, one half of Heavy Machinery, taking on Tommaso Ciampa. This was a fun match here. Ultimately, Tommaso Ciampa, I'm going to go out there and say it, is definitely my favorite heel within NXT. I think this was just, it was fun. It was Dozek, this is his big opportunity, man. He's getting the one-on-one match with the champ. And I enjoyed what he brought, dude. I think he's a big guy. Again, as established earlier, I like bigger wrestlers. So I like those big dudes. So seeing him take on Ciampa and almost, convincingly beat him several different times here. Ultimately, Ciampa defeated Dozovic with a pretty badass fucking draping TDT onto the apron, and then another one within the ring, which I liked Ciampa's ring presence at the end when he got the pin, as he made sure to bring in and pull in his arms and making sure he wasn't going to be grabbing the ropes or anything, because the pinfall was pretty close to the ropes there, obviously, with the draping DVT. So we went off the air with Ciampa reigning supreme as your NXT World Champion. Great stuff here on NXT this week. Ultimately, I had a really good week of professional wrestling here between Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, Ring of Honor, and NXT. That's a lot of fucking wrestling we're watching, guys. That's a lot of fucking wrestling. So, again, we got Death Before Dishoner tonight. We got this WWE Supercard Showdown coming up next Saturday. So, totally, guys, we got a lot of things to look forward to. With all that being said, we are at the end of this fucking podcast. This whirlwind podcast. Holy shit. I don't think I've talked this long in a very long time. It's been a long time since I've done one of these solo episodes. With that being said, I definitely want to address the future of this podcast. Obviously, with the beginning segment on this podcast this week, I addressed the opening as this being the Totally Necessary Wrestling Podcast. So no longer will we be known as the Totally Unnecessary Wrestling Podcast, but we are now known as the Totally Necessary Wrestling Podcast, because definitely we want to be positive on this show. Again, you can't always be positive. We definitely want to call out things that aren't necessarily the best, and again, be critical of things when it deserves to be critical. But definitely, man, we're taking the unnecessary and we are making that shit necessary. So, obviously my co-host is no longer on this podcast. And again, not getting really into, personal business or anything like that. But there was a situation where space was requested, and apparently space has been granted in that case there. And we're no longer known as the Totally Unnecessary Wrestling Podcast. And again, we are the Totally Necessary Wrestling Podcast. Again, no hard feelings in regards to any previous people that were featured on here. I totally wish them well in their future endeavors. I offered the name of the podcast to that person. I was like, hey, if you want to take the ball and you want to run with the Totally Unnecessary Wrestling Podcast, you are more than welcome to. That person's chosen not to do that. So again, based on that, we're simply just tweaking the name a little bit. Okay, we're here. We're still going to be covering wrestling, guys. I don't know exactly what the future holds for this podcast. I mean, at the moment, I definitely am still wanting to cover professional wrestling on a weekly basis. So yeah, you're definitely going to be getting a podcast every Friday, at least for the foreseeable future. So continue to listen. Definitely continue to listen, guys. And yeah, we'll see you next time.